I want you to look me dead in the eyes and say David Benavidez beats Canelo Alvarez. If you watched last night's fight, you'll know that's absolute nonsense. It's tomfoolery to even think that, because David Benavidez, I mean, yeah, it was a whooping on Demetrius Andrade, the guy who comes up 2 weight classes. Benavidez can go and fight up at cruiserweight and be okay. He does not touch Canelo, though. I mean, if you allow Demetrius Andrade to get in on you and work you to the body like Andrade did, because Andrade kept finding that right hook to the body. Was it a right? No, that left hook to the body. He's a southpaw. Miss me with that. I mean, Benavidez is a good fighter. He's only 26. He might be the next champion, but it's Canelo, guys. Canelo Alvarez. Sure, he struggled against Bivol and John Ryder, and in the other southpaw he fights, and he had a lackluster performance against Triple G. Come to think of it, he hasn't looked good lately, except for the last fight against Jermall Charlo. Couldn't remember which was which. Jermall fought last night, and we'll be talking about him in a second. But David Benavidez does not touch Canelo. Mark my words. We'll come back to this if we have to. Because, I mean, yeah, he looked good. Great knockout. The dude should have knocked out Andrade, though. Andrade's fighting up at 160. There's no reason he should be at 168. And he's not particularly good at 160 either. This is episode 161 of the Fight Library Podcast. I'm Blaine Henry, your host. And we're talking about David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. So, my main concern... So, Benavidez, he won the fight, 6-round retirement. If you missed the fight, or if you just didn't see it for some reason or another, he had Andrade hurt bad in the final 2, in the 5th and 6th round. Halfway through the 4th round, too, he actually had Andrade backpedaling. But you can't, Andrade had a field day those first couple rounds, those first 3, really. Slowed down kind of in the 3rd, slowed down in the 4th like Andrade does. So, what does that do for me when I'm thinking about a Canelo fight? And it's absolutely nothing. Benavidez, he's going to be a real champion one day. Canelo might vacate a title, and he's going to automatically fight for it. But I just don't see him beating Canelo. Too much of what I saw from Andrade. Now, to be fair, Andrade's a southpaw, and Canelo fights orthodox, so that could be a lot of what looked bad, and I'll give Benavidez credit for that. He managed to suss that out and get the job done. But the fact that he let Andrade get to his body with a left hook really worried me. Now, obviously from a southpaw, it's different because Andrade throws a rear left hook off a pivot, which Canelo would be throwing the lead left hook. He does that whole, I'm going to throw my right hand in the air and come to the left hook to the body. That's Canelo's go-to. Ask Billy Joe Saunders. Smashed him with that. So if Demetrius Andrade's finding that, okay, so let's talk about, first of all, the hand speed. Jack Slack, one of my favorite analysts, always says there's not really a gradient on hand speed. Okay, you're either the faster or the slower fighter. And David Benavidez was the faster fighter. Andrade still got in on him. Still managed to land 5, 6, 7, 8 punch combos. Canelo's not going to put out that kind of activity. He's not going to punch himself out. He's going to smash Benavidez to the body. And that's just going to be it. Once Benavidez's hands start coming low, we're going to see Canelo topple the giant. So yeah, let's get that out the way. Canelo, the match, it has to happen next. That's the only fight for Canelo. May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo weekend, Mexican versus Mexican. Let's do it. I want to see the fight. I do, but my prediction is Canelo by just what he always does. There might be an issue with the inactivity of Canelo. Benavidez can probably paralyze him a little while with his hand speed and getting off more than one shot in exchanges. But as that bodywork of Canelo starts to wear down Benavidez, who doesn't go the distance very often, It's going to be a long night. So yeah, get that David Benavidez beats Canelo crap out of your head. It's not happening. Point blank, period, full stop. That's the end of that. But he looked good. He did look good against Andrade. So early, let's see, I've got my notes here. Andrade starts, he comes in and he's got a lot of really good multi-punch combinations. And that's what he's always good at early in the fight. But the problem with Demetrius Andrade is he fades. Okay, and he's not fought anybody that was actually decent. I'm sorry. Like people like Luke Keeler and stuff, like he shouldn't be fighting these guys at 35 years old, undefeated with 30-something wins. That's not. He gets a layoffs claiming he's ducked. No, he's not taking the harder fights, and that's really hurting his career. And we saw it against Benavidez. So he did, his experience showed up, and he was smothering Benavidez. I would have liked to see more of that, but I have a feeling like he was starting to feel Benavidez's punches in that clinch as he pressed him up against the ropes. So, fair play to him on that, especially early in the fight where he was kind of getting off on Benavidez. He was finding these things, looping punches from Andrade, uppercuts to huge combos. Let's see, Andrade, he was staying low, and he was circling the cage. Now, or the ring, I should say. This is not MMA. So Andrade, he would stay low. He's the lower fighter, which means Benavidez has to punch down, which takes away some of his longer reach. Like, it was a solid game plan at first, but Benavidez was just too big. He was fighting a guy 2 weight classes below. Let's be real. 160 is not Andrade's normal weight class, so he's not 1 class. That's 2 classes down. And all of a sudden, Benavidez starts landing shots coming forward. Andrade in round 4 has a beautiful pivot. And he all of a sudden he got hit, I think, to the body, became way less active. And at the end of that 4th round, big right hand, Benavidez like just thudded him, just smacked him one good time. I was like, what? How did that happen? And luckily for Andrade, he had 1 second left. But I say luckily, he went out and got just hammered after that 4th round knockdown. And Benavidez came forward. There was a right hook that hurt Andrade. Let's see, what else do I have written down here? And he just was pouring it on. He started dart walking him in that round. And the referee told him, look, we can't have another round like that. So round 6 comes around, and lo and behold, what happens? Another round like that. Andrade was a little bit more active in round 6. But not near enough, and every time he would get active, Benavidez was like, all right, bro, come on, let's trade. You want to bang? I guarantee my banging's better than your bang. So, yeah, at the end of the 6th round, the ref was like, look, I'm going to call the fight if we have any more of a round like that. Like, he wasn't even, like, giving him a whole round. He's like, look, you got to fight back and show me something. In the corner, they did the right thing, and they were like, you know what? That's it. We're done. Good call by the corner, by the way. Fantastic call, because you got to take care of your fighter, and that's what they needed to do. So yeah, great call, great move by them. Andrade, I'm not high on Andrade, if you can't tell. I don't think he's that great of a fighter. He's a really good boxer, and he beat me up for sure, but I don't think Demetrius Andrade is a caliber of fighter that should have been fighting David Benavidez. Obviously, Demetrius Andrade had been pestering Canelo. David Benavidez has been pestering Canelo. So we had to get one of them out the way. So what's the best way to do that? Make them fight. So yeah, well, we know like Benavidez should fight Canelo next, but this is boxing. He might go fight Bivol out of the blue for some reason. He might unify his interim title with David Morrell's interim title before he fights Canelo. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, I mean, good fight. I didn't like what I saw from Benavidez, and I hope he becomes a better fighter because of this fight, because Andrade really did show him the hands early in this fight, more so than Caleb Plant, who was his toughest fight to date. So, Benavidez, he's beat Caleb Plant, he's beat Demetrius Andrade, 2 good fighters, not great, good fighters. So yeah, more power to him. I don't know what's next for Demetrius Andrade, nor do I really care. He's 35. He doesn't have much in the tank, especially at 160, 168. It's over for him. So yeah, good fight with Canelo. I was actually very happy with what I saw there. Co-main event was Jermall Charlo after 2.5 years off, and he took on Jose Benavidez, the brother of David Benavidez. So Jermall Charlo, mental health problems. He was undisputed champ. No, he wasn't undisputed. I'm sorry. But he was the champion, undefeated. It had 2.5 years off, and a lot of his criticism came at. He was undefeated at 160. Let me put that caveat in there. So a lot of his criticism was basically he's not fighting. Why is he still ranked? Why has he still got these belts? And yeah, he should have been stripped. Now he's fighting at 168. He's definitely got to be stripped. We got to have the vacant titles at 160 now. That means Janabek. Yeah, Janabek gets the fight for that. I like that. I would have liked to see Charlo versus Janabek, honestly. Janabek Alhamdulillah is just a great fighter. But yeah, so Jermall Charlo, he comes out, and his best weapon is obviously his jab. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on these next two fights, but we'll spend a few minutes. Jermall Charlo's best weapon is his jab, and he didn't rush into things getting back into this fight after 2.5 years off. What he did was he started, I'm going to jab you to the body, I'm going to jab you up top, or I'm going to jab you up top, then I'm going to jab you to the body. Or I'm just going to jab you to one or the other. And he didn't kind of like nosedive into the situation, which is what you want to see. So as he's working, he's building off of this, he starts to add a left hook. And, Benavidez, we talked about being the faster fighter. Benavidez was the faster fighter. Jermall Charlo was a hair slower, but there's no hair slower. You're either the faster or the slower fighter. If we start punching at the same time, who's going to win? And Jose Benavidez was. But what Charlo did was he knew he needed to become the faster fighter. Okay, so he's normally the faster fighter when he fights, but he knew here he wasn't because Jose Benavidez, he's not a great fighter, but he's good enough to know what we need to do to beat him. You can't go out there and just be yourself. Against a guy like Jose Benavidez, his level and higher, you need a game plan to kind of change how they fight. You need to take away one of their weapons. In this case, Charlo took away the speed. How did he do that? Going to the body. That jab to the body really did work for him. And he would jab to the body, jab up top. Then he started throwing in these lead hooks. He started throwing in the right cross. And he started building off of what he did in the first round. And in the second round, he built off of that. And then he starts, like, as the fight going on, you're like, what's going on? Like, Charlo looks great. And Jermall Charlo did look good. Somebody on YouTube said, like, it was a short I made after. And he's like, nah, you thought he looked good? No, it was on Twitter. You thought he looked good? He was supposed to knock that guy out. Like, no, dude. No. 2.5 years off. Ring rust is a thing. He didn't look like he was ring rusty, but he was a little bit ring rusty. But yeah, so obviously, like I said, his best punch is his jab, and it is a great weapon. I wish. So, like, one thing I've noticed about Charlo over the years is, like, he doesn't do anything spectacular, but he also doesn't make mistakes. Jermall Charlo goes out there and he boxes right. He boxes correct, and he knows that if you minimize mistakes, you minimize risk, and if you minimize risk, you minimize losses. And it's worked out perfectly for him so far. He's undefeated. So, Benavidez, he had his moments in this fight. And every time he had a moment, it was utilizing his hand speed. So he'd back Charlo into a corner, and he would pour on as many as he can before Charlo would answer back or cover up and circle out. Charlo wouldn't get flustered in these spots. He did get into a few moments where he wanted to trade, but I have a feeling that was just a, hey, we need to do this type thing. So yeah, Charlo, but I think like I said, his best weapon is his jab, but one weapon that he has that's very underrated. He was looking for the right uppercut all night, and he landed a few of them. But I think his second best punch is that left lead uppercut. So he'll throw the jab up, down, and he'll mix in the left hook. Those three he'll mix around. He'll throw a right, but then he'll sneak in this left uppercut. Sometimes he'll do it on a pivot too, sneak it up under your jab or your cross, depending on what stance you're in. What was Benavidez? I don't remember. I think he's a southpaw. I mean, I think he's orthodox. So he would sneak this left uppercut in, and it would land. And it's like, man, this isn't going to knock somebody out, but it's going to fluster them. And fluster them it did. So yeah, good return for Jermall Charlo. I do think he has a future at 168. He does need to vacate the 160 belts though completely, or go back to 160. Canelo will fight him. We've seen Canelo fight his brother, who was 154, something like that. With Jermall Charlo. So Jermall can go do his thing at 160, and then he can have a champ versus champ fight with Canelo. He can go fight Janabek, which would be a great fight. I don't even know who the other champions are at that class. Let me see if I can pull that up right fast. Let's see. BoxRec, the champions. But yeah, Charlo, he's just kind of one of those guys that I'm like, I used to not like him. He's a New Orleans guy. I usually pull for the Louisiana guys through and through. Like Regis in a couple weeks. I'm excited for that. Him and Haney. Oh, that's going to be such a good fight. And that sets up a fight with Teofimo Lopez. So, yeah. So you got Lara, Iris Landy, Lara, Charlo, and Janabek Alamhamala. So, yeah, I mean, he's got some fights down there. Let's see. They got Eubank as number 1 there. Come on, BoxRec. What are you doing? Janabek's the best in the world there, for sure. You can fight Liam Smith, a couple Kazakh guys. Yeah, so he's got some fights down there, man. So, yeah. I mean, he wants to fight Canelo, or he needs to at 168. Him versus Caleb Plant's a fun fight. They got some other guys there. Callum Smith moved up. Billy Joe Saunders might be coming back. So, yeah. Who else is 160? I mean, I don't see him fighting Benavidez. That's definitely out of the question, Him and Benavidez would never fight. Munguia, John Ryder, Sergey Derevchenko, Caleb Plant. Demetrius Andrade would be a good one. David Morrell has the interim title if he wants to get Canelo. That's a way to lure Canelo. Go get that interim title from Morrell. Yeah, so the future's bright for Charlo. Last one I'll talk about, Subriel Matias and Ergashev. Oh my gosh. 140 is a good division. Like we used to talk about 135, with Tank and when they had Haney, Shakur moved up, and all those guys. 135 was a good division. 140's getting there too. So you got Subriel Matias, you got Teofimo Lopez up there now, Regis Prograis, and now we got Devin Haney. Man, Taylor I think is gone. I think Taylor moved up. But man, that's a division, and you better not count Subriel Matias out, because that guy, he can hit. So Ergashev was a southpaw, I believe. Yeah, he was a southpaw, and Matias kind of had trouble going early on. Ergashev was finding the cross, and he was actually landing pretty clean on Subriel Matias. But Subriel Matias managed to weather the storm, settle in. Like I said on X, I don't want to keep saying Twitter. I said it on X that Ergashev boxes so beautiful. And then he just kind of stopped. So he starts trying to fight in the clinch. I don't know if Subriel Matias hurt him or he was like, all right, we're going to fight in the clinch where I can find a power shot. He couldn't find a power shot. So he started just getting dirty boxing range, shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest, head to head, and just trying to find the uppercut. Couldn't find it. Matias would land 2-3 punch combos. Not Matias, Ergashev early. And then I think, when was it? Ergashev started coming forward around round 3. No, not Ergashev, I'm sorry. Subriel Matias started coming forward around round 3, round 4. And that's when he just started to pour it on. Like, Ergashev didn't have anything else. He was like, I can't box at range because he keeps coming forward. And I can't box in the clinch because he keeps hurting me. So what am I going to do? He kept going to the clinch. So that's the only thing he can do. He kept going to the pocket because that's the only thing he can do. And Subriel Matias is like, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. Let's go. And he kept banging him out. Boom, boom, boom. I loved it. I was like, I hadn't watched Subriel Matias box before. I was like, man, I'm sorry. I was not familiar with your game. The whole Shaquille O'Neal meme. At the end, round 5, Ergashev was just beat down bad. He hurt his leg, he said, and the corner called the fight off. Good call again. Save your fighter for another day. That's something you don't see in MMA too much. So, yeah. Good fight all around, man. Wow. Good card. We just got off that bad pacing of PFL, and don't get me started on it. You got a whole 23-minute video of me crying about how bad PFL was. But this last Showtime boxing card reminds you why they're the best. So anyways, guys, look, down here, I got my Twitter /X. You got my Substack, which you can get these two directly, or just subscribe. Either way, any of these is how you can show me some love. I love you guys, and I will catch you next week. We got 2 good cards: Arman Saryukin and Beneil Dariush fight in the UFC, and then Ryan Garcia's back. So we'll be making 2 videos about that. Anyways, guys, I am out. That is the end of this. And in typical Sonda fashion, because I just got back, go watch Fight Finders 2, Sonda World Championships. But in Sonda fashion,